Hi folks, welcome back to the channel and to another DJI Mini 3 Pro video. And Freewell have just sent me a collection of their new ND filters for the Mini 3 Pro. So today I'm going to explain to you how these work, how you can use them, and then maybe once we've done that I can pop out on the e-bike. We'll go for a little adventure and see if there's anywhere where we can get some nice shots, some cinematic shots with these filters in place. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. If you do, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe for future DJI Mini 3 Pro content. Let's get on with the show. Just a brief interruption to outside me to show you what Freewell have sent me. They've sent me the all-day 6-pack. Okay, and this is basically their general set of ND filters and probably the selection that many of you would choose. So the ND filters will limit the amount of light that is allowed in by the sensor on your DJI Mini 3 Pro, allowing you to adjust your exposure accordingly, giving more choice when it comes to those cinematic shots. They've also sent me the Bright Day 6-pack, and these are also a collection of ND filters. But these ND filters are combined with the polarized linear filter as well. And what that will do is allow you to choose how much vibrancy you have on the reflective surfaces such as water and other non-metallic surfaces as well, which can increase the saturation of the colors that you see there. Now, again, these are combined with ND filters so that you can choose to have these if you're going to be filming a lot, perhaps over the beach or over lakes, etc. This might be the selection that would be better for you. And they've also sent me a UV filter as well, which is actually green on the cover, so you can't see that properly because of the green screen behind me. But the UV filter will minimize the amount of UV light that's entering through your sensor. Actually, I believe it protects your sensor from the damage of those UV rays, but it also helps to give you, in theory, some more accurate colors as well. So we'll have to put this to the test to see how we get on with it. But there's no ND component to this particular filter. So to start with, I am going to show you the all-day 6-pack, as I suspect this is the pack that most of you are going to want to go for. It's the basic standard ND filters. And again, this will give you just a nice cinematic look to your footage, at least when you set them up correctly. Now, the good thing is with the Mini 3 is that it is effectively built from the ground up to allow for ND filters. For those of you that didn't, or that used ND filters on the Mini 2, they were a bit of a ball ache because they had these little hooks on the filters in order to attach them to the camera. And again, that was just really annoying, really fiddly. And fortunately, DJI have learned from that. And they have, as I say, built the gimbal and built the camera so that you can attach these filters much more easily. DJI themselves, I believe, even sell filters as well. That's better. And then we just give it a little bit of a twist. That's all it needs. And then that comes straight off, just like that. It's as simple as that. And then we get our ND filter. This isn't an ND filter, but just to show you. And then we just pop it on at an angle and twist it back into place. It is that easy to adjust and to replace filters and stuff on the DJI Mini 3 Pro. So if that put you off the filters with the Mini 2 because of just how awkward and fiddly it was, then note that that has been fixed here with the Mini 3. So that's good news indeed. Okay then folks, so right now we are currently set to auto exposure. And we want to change that so that we can make the most of these filters. So what we're going to do is select the auto option down at the bottom, and you can see straight away that the image is totally overexposed there, which is something we would expect. Now the shutter speed you generally want to set, I believe it's called the 180 rule, to double what your frame rate is that you want to record in, you know, say you're doing video. And generally in Europe for cinematic shots, you're going to record at 24 frames per second. In the States, you would want to up that to 25. Because I'm doing a YouTube video and I need to have a consistency across all of my recording devices, I'm going to record at 30 frames per second, which means I want my shutter speed at 1/60. Now, the ISO rating, we're going to want to drag that down all the way to 100. Now, straight away, you can see that isn't going to work without any filters on the lens itself. It's just way too overexposed. Okay. And now we've got the ND8 filter. You can see straight away how the exposure has come right down there. Now, we are still getting that zebra pattern, especially in the sky, which I'm going to suspect is going to be overexposed. Let's turn off the overexposure warning. And yeah, we are just effectively seeing white. We can't see the blue hue that well of the sky itself. Now, that may be the type of shot you're going for. So again, just don't worry too much about the exposure warning on the screen itself. It is only there as a guide. But I'm going to go ahead now and put that back on. And then try using the ND16 filter to see if that gives us a more appropriate shot for our testing purposes. Okay, and ND16. These are so easy to change. They really are. So yeah, well done DJI on that. And yep, the sky is still a little bit overexposed according to the histogram there. But let's go ahead and turn that off so that we can test it for ourselves. And I'm actually starting to see the outline of the clouds now. If I just face it up a little bit more towards the sky, the gimbal does not want to do that, it's refusing. There we go. Yeah, I can actually see some of the blue hue and that coming through. And it is very cloudy in the sky today as well anyway. And oh yeah, that's looking good. That is looking much better now. Let me just go ahead and check the histogram. Yeah, you can see that the zebra pattern has been minimised quite substantially now with the ND32 filter in place. So let's give it a fly, shall we now, with this particular filter. Take off. The home point has been updated. Make sure that we have a nice GPS lock there. So I'm going to go for a little flight. We'll see how the footage looks. I'm going to start recording with the ND32 filter in place with these manual settings, 100 ISO, 1/60 shutter speed, and hopefully it'll look pretty good, give you a good example as to how these filters work. Now, motion blur, etc. is only going to really work on moving objects or if the drone is low to the ground. Yeah, got a bee following me around. Go away. Yeah, I had a bee following me then, not good. I think it took a shining to my head cam. Right, okay. Let's just drop the gimbal down a touch so that we've got more of the landscape in shot here. And this is the type of footage you're going to expect out of using these ND filters. Unfortunately, there is issues with the range on my DJI Mini 3 Pro, so I'm not going to be able to take it too far. But hopefully that gives you an idea as to the type of recording you're going to be able to get out of these filters. And it looks very nice, I have to say. But what I want to do is try and do a little bit of low flying. And the reason I want to do that is so that I can show you some of the motion blur that you can expect. So let's go ahead now and bring the drone back. Just drop that right down. And we'll have a look at how this looks. So maybe you guys can see some of the motion blur in play here. Okay, let's come back. Yeah, so that motion blur effectively gives you just a much more cinematic feel to the footage that you're recording, because when you're not using ND filters and you've got your shutter speed set at a much higher rate, then it's just going to look very rigid, the footage. You're going to see everything without that blur. And, you know, just a lot of people would generally say that the motion blurs you see in the movies and what have you, which is what you get, is generally a more cinematic feel to the footage. So, yeah, what do you guys think of that? But that's just a brief example. Let's go ahead and bring the drone into a land now. Landing. Right, so I'm thinking what we can do now is go and have a little bit of exploration with the bike and see if there's anything. I think there might be like a bit of a stream with some waterfall action, not a big thing, but something that I can show you some of these filters in action a little bit more. And maybe we can try the polarized filters, that's these ones here, the Bright Day Pack, and see how that works against the water, if I can find some, because that is obviously a reflective surface. So okay, let's pack up and be on our bike. Right, so I've just arrived and I've got to say it's not the waterfall that I was expecting. It's more of a little stream, but we're here now, so we've got some water. Let's get the drone out, try out these polarised filters and see what sort of footage we can capture. Now, the ND polarised filters attached to the Mini 3 in exactly the same way, but you'll notice they have two letters, H on the side and V on the top. And on the red band around the glass, there is a very small but notable white dot. You need to line this up with the H for horizontal or V for vertical letters, depending on the orientation you're going to be shooting in with your Mini 3. So if you have the camera horizontal, make sure that white dot is lined up with the H. And if you're going to have your camera in the vertical shooting position, make sure it's lined up against the V. That's really all there is to it, but it is that one extra step for these polarised ND filters. So what I've done is I've put on an ND8 filter that has the polarised linear combination. And the reason I've used an 8 is simply because, as you can see, it's much darker around here. We are covered by trees. There's not a whole lot of natural light coming in, and a 32 would really not be ideal. That said, it's still perhaps a little bit too dark for our purposes, so I'm going to have to adjust the ISO value before we start to get any really decent looking shots. Now, fortunately, it has rained a little bit as well, so the stream has a bit more water to it than it did a moment ago, and we have some good movement here, which will really put this to the test in terms of the ND filter. So since it is a little bit dark, I will need to adjust that ISO rating and just increase that to perhaps 200 to see how we get on with that. I do also have to say that I re-recorded this commentary in post because the constant bleeping of the obstacle avoidance would have drove you guys nuts. So sorry about that, but it is what it is. And yeah, let's start getting some footage here. So what you're seeing now is the raw 4K 30 frames per second footage taken directly from the memory card of the drone itself. And even though it looks perhaps a little bit dark, that's not a bad thing. This is quite a dark area anyway, because it is completely covered in trees and what have you. And there's very little sky on show. Now, when you have the drone without a filter set to auto mode, auto exposure, it would look brighter than this, but it would be unnaturally brighter because, as I say, it doesn't look that bright when you're here in person. So even though this does look a little dark, it's far closer to reality than what you'd get without using an ND filter. And that's really the look I wanted to show you guys. The more natural look that you can get using these particular filters. So yeah, what do you think of this? This is, as I say, 30 frames per second. But what we can do is switch over to 60 frames per second and perhaps slow that footage down. And of course, one of the good things about filming in 60 frames per second is that you are able to halve the speed of that in post back to 30 frames per second, giving you a little bit of slow motion, but more importantly, a very powerful cinematic effect. So yeah, in 60 frames per second, I'm going to increase the shutter to 1/120, which does sadly darken the image a little bit more. So that's why I'm going to increase the ISO value even further here. So right now at 400, it's looking a little better, but I think it's still a little bit too dark. And I was trying to compare the image to how it looked with my own eyes. And I felt that the 800 ISO just gave a better look there. So here I am recording in 4K 60. And what I'm going to do now is actually slow this footage down, the actual video file itself from the memory card. And you guys can let me know what you think of this with the ND filter and the polarized glass in place. Alright then folks, well I've taken a look at that footage now from the Sheep's Dip stream as it's called, and I think it turned out rather well. What I've done is I've come home because I want to see the actual effect that the polarised lens has on the video footage in comparison to when you're not using a filter at all. So the pond here in the garden is of course a reflective surface, and it's a little bit more still than the rushing waterfalls of the Sheep's Dip. So it should give us a good example or a good comparison when we're using a polarised lens with the ND filter in comparison to not using an ND filter at all. So I'm just going to go and get a little bit of footage here now with the standard DJI offering. So this is no ND filter, and then we'll put on the polarised ND filter, probably I'm thinking a 16. Just up it a little bit from what I was using, since we're out in the open and it is a little bit brighter now, and we'll see how it all compares. Right, okay, so with no ND filter, yeah, we need to tap that back into auto mode and hopefully get a better image there. Why is the gimbal wanting to face right down? I don't want it to do that. That's more like it. Okay, let's go ahead and just get some footage here of the pond. Not the most exciting footage, I understand, but if we drop the gimbal down a touch, yeah, it does need a bit of a clean. So I'm going to go ahead and record that as well in 4K 30. Okay, and now we have that polarised lens, or sorry, the polarised filter, the ND16, fitted and in place. So let's see what this looks like. I've gone ahead and got that filter attached. Let's move back into position and see how the pond looks now with the polarising effect. But how does that water look to you now? It's difficult to see on this screen because it's so bright at the moment. So I'll have to wait till I get it into post-production and get that 4K off the memory card. But can you guys see a notable improvement there compared to the footage I recorded without any ND filter in place? So this is ND16, and I've currently got it set to ISO 200 with the 180 rule in place. And it looks pretty decent. I can still, as I say, see the reflection of the water, but you know, you want it to have some natural look to it. But are the colours of the water itself a little bit more vibrant here with that polarising effect in place? Yeah, please do let me know what you think of that down in the comments, and I'm going to bring the drone back again. And also, whilst I'm by the pond, I want to show this one off to you. This is the final filter that I have. It's not an ND filter, it's a UV filter. Attaches exactly the same way, and it minimises the amount of UV light and rays that are going to enter through the sensor. It can protect the sensor from those damaging rays, along with, in theory, creating more vibrancy to the colours. So let's give it a go. Okay, so with no ND filter, we're going to have to just take the settings back to auto is probably best. And let's just have a little fly around the garden. We've got some flowers and stuff with a little bit of colour in them, and we'll see how this footage looks. So let's start recording. Yeah, I mean, I've got to say the camera on the Mini 3 is phenomenal anyway. But what do you guys think of this? Do the colours look a little bit more vibrant with this UV filter on? I'm going to be honest, it's not the brightest of days. The sun is out, there's a little bit of blue sky, but it's quite cloudy as well. So this would probably have a better effect on a much brighter day. Alright then folks, well I'm going to bring it in for a final landing now. I think we've tested out all of these filters, and hopefully you guys have a good idea as to what they're all about. But thank you so much for watching this DJI Mini 3 Pro video. I'm impressed with these filters, but as always, I'm very intrigued by your thoughts. So if you've been using the Freewell ND filters, then please do let me know what you think down in the comments. And as always, please stick around for more Mini 3 Pro content. I've got quite a bit planned. So thanks again for watching. Thank you so much to everybody that's been supporting my videos lately. And I'll see you next time. Bye everybody.